pro-black politics. Lustafari in the chat. I got some news for you niggas. Functional illiteracy consists of reading and writing skills that are inadequate to manage daily living and employment tasks that require reading skills beyond a basic level. A reading level that might be sufficient to make a farmer functionally literate in a rural area of a developing country might qualify as functional illiteracy in an urban area of a technologically advanced country. In developed countries, the level of functional literacy of an individual is proportional to income level and inversely proportional to the risk of committing certain kinds of crimes. In Russia, where more than 99% of the population is technically literate, only one-third of high school graduates can comprehend the content of scientific and literary texts, according to a 2015 study. The UK government's Department of Education reported in 2006 that 47% of school children left school at the age of 16 without having achieved a basic level in functional mathematics, and 42% failed to achieve a basic level of functional English. Every year, 100,000 pupils leave school functionally illiterate in the UK. In the United States, according to Business Magazine, an estimated 15 million functionally illiterate adults held jobs at the beginning of the 21st century. According to the National Center for Educational Statistics in the United States, the National Center for Educational Statistics provide more detail. Literacy is broken down into three parameters: prose, document, and quantitative literacy. Each parameter has four levels: below basic, basic, intermediate, and proficient. For prose literacy, for example, a below basic level of literacy means that a person can look at a short piece of text to get a small piece of uncomplicated information, while a person who is below basic in quantitative literacy will be able to do simple addition. In the US, 14% of the adult population is at the below basic level for prose literacy. 12% are at the below basic level for document literacy, and 22% are at the level for quantitative literacy. Only 13% of the population is proficient in each of these three areas, able to compare viewpoints in two editorials, interpret a table about blood pressure, age, and physical activity, or compute and compare the cost per ounce of food items. In 2019, the nation's report card from the National Assessment of Education Progress found that just 15% of black eighth graders were at or above reading proficiency. About half didn't even reach the basic reading benchmark. Last week, the NAEP released its latest results for high school seniors literacy. They're not much better. Only 17% of black 12th graders hit proficiency. As a woman of color, the former Los Angeles United School District middle school teacher, the author of this article, is enraged about the statistics and how our education system is failing black children. She's also concerned that there are so few media outlets that are talking about this. A 2017 article titled 75% of black California boys don't meet state reading standards highlighted the problem on a statewide level. An article by Natalie Wexler, published in Ford in 2020, How Reading Instructions Fail Black and Brown Children, points out that on a national test in 2019, only 18% of black fourth graders scored proficient or above in reading. The figure for white fourth graders was 45%. For eighth graders, the percentage was 15 and 42%. Us being the 15, them being the 42. Another report by Emily Hanford from APM Reports focuses on how these issues present challenging obstacles for parenting. Among the multiple scholarly articles mentioned in this piece, a particular quote stands out. Excuse me. You can't be a good reader without good word recognition. recognition skills. Reading scientists refer to word recognition as a sine qua non of being a good reader, but good word recognition skills are only half the equation. Research shows that once kids have mastered the basics of decoding, their ability to understand what they read is largely determined by the level of their language comprehension. There's a lot to language comprehension. It's all the words you know the meaning of and your understanding of how language works, grammar, syntax. It also includes the things you know. For example, if you don't know what sine qua non means, you may not have fully understood the paragraph above. Sine qua non is a Latin phrase that means an essential condition, something that is absolutely necessary. What does all this mean? The crisis that African Americans face is well documented, as well as our possible solutions to the problem, namely more funding for advanced educational services in communities of people of color. As a result of the crisis, we are now, as African Americans, faced with harder obstacles to attaining higher levels of education, since reading comprehension is a major component of being successful in academics beyond a high school level. But along with the struggles that 83% of Black Americans face from a lack of reading skills, come yet another hurdle in the form of misinformation or deceit. For this, we'll take a closer look at the Aboriginal, Black Indian, foundational Black American movements.
Well, I just go by my nation, right? We have our own Genesis. We have our own story, and now our creation story don't come from Africa. It actually derives from here in the Americas.
I'm not dealing with myths. I'm dealing with science.
No, you're dealing with theory.
According to you, I'm dealing with science. The monogenetic theory, the word theory there, forget about expert know what theory means. I'm asking you, what is the origin of humanity according to science?
Well, brother, science was created by colonizers. You don't get science, this Western science, until colonization. And that's why you're standing out here with it. Because, especially you from Africa, out the continent, know you colonized. But no, brother, you would want to go by white man society. But nah, brother, we don't do that. We don't believe in theories. Okay.
To start, do not be confused or fooled into thinking that Black Aboriginals, Black Indians, or foundational Black Americans are anything but African Americans. That is, Black people that descend in one form or another from the events that are summed up as the transatlantic slave trade. Black Aboriginals, Black Indians, and foundational Black Americans make up a growing cult sector of African Americans on social media. The cult pushes ideas that include the denial of the transatlantic slave trade, that they are the original Native Americans and the people we know as Native Americans are imposters that stole their identities. The earth is flat. DNA companies are scams that steal your DNA to clone your genetics. And the scientific theory is just based on guessing. The obvious questions are clear. What does this have to do with the reading crisis? How does this affect us? Why should we care? Well, one, what does this have to do with the reading crisis? Only 17% of Black 12th graders hit proficiency in reading skills. These African American cults exist due to an inability to understand simple high school level text. Two, how does this affect us? Take a listen to this short clip from a leader of one of these illiteracy cults.
It's incredible now that the teachers can teach the bullshit that they teach at schools with all the information that the child has in their hand, that the parents to say, look, when they send this bullshit home, you can't say, hey, well, it's okay. Well, we can mark this the way they want us to mark this to pass the test. Well, the test needs to change. Do y'all understand? That is illegal. It's called paper genocide. That, according to the Geneva Convention, according to the American Constitution, according to the UNDRIP, an American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, which would be us, by the way, by law, not by DNA test, not by your talking, going back and forth. No, by the law of this land, it needs to be enforced. Now, what's good about that they're enforcing the laws in the Constitution right, is that these laws will be enforced, you guys. But a lot of people don't want to go back to these time periods. And why do you think they don't want to? Because those are the people that are working against our people, brother. The Black Caucus, the dead caucus. You understand what I'm saying?
Fascinating stuff. Third, why should we care? Well, take a listen to these clips.
Through compulsory educational institutions, vulnerable children were taught as young students about the topic of a mandatory curriculum. These young students were forced to study and comprehend all information provided by their teachers concerning this topic, to pass multiple tests and possibly graduate toward the next grading level. Without strict supervision at home from their parents concerning what their children learned in school, these students eventually became adults that were indoctrinated with detailed information about U.S. history, which they now believe is the absolute truth without any doubts or room for questioning its accuracy or validity. This type of social engineering experiment systematically manipulated millions of Americans' mindsets into a one-directional belief system, to the point where the offspring of the indigenous Niji, who are misclassified today as African Americans or Black Americans, will believe that their direct ancestors were somehow captured by anonymous European Caucasian sailors from random parts of West Africa and then forcibly migrated to North America to work as slaves for foreigners from another continent. This folklore is commonly known today as the transatlantic slave trade story. However, essential details of this story did not happen the way that we were all told by strangers in school. Not only was this deceitful story drastically manipulated and even exaggerated by design, but it was also told to us in reverse. This book is made available to order June 30th, 2022. Order your copy today to learn more.
Shit's crazy.
We got Bo. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
That's right.
But at the same time, though, we're here to connect with the youth, man. We got to start tapping into these other platforms that the youth eyes is glued to, and they watch every word, they watch every live stream. We got to start tapping into that.
The focus of this piece is to highlight the literacy crisis faced by African Americans in the U.S. One of the major solutions to the problem we face is more funding for advanced educational services for Black students. Yet here we have a cohort of illiterate African Americans attempting to educate our children. The connection between education and attaining higher levels of employment is a known fact. 85% of Black fourth graders don't meet the level of reading proficiency, and just 17% of Black high school graduates meet the proficiency level. So why would we care that functionally illiterate adults are teaching their children that are most likely in the 83% of Black children that struggle to read already, that the schools are lying and that the information in the textbooks isn't real history or science? Maybe we shouldn't. But luckily, for them, some of us, like Sonia Thomas, do care. Sonia Thomas is a concerned Black parent that noticed that her son was having difficulty in school when it came to reading. Her concern led her to start Nashville Propel, which stands for Parents Requiring Our Public Education Systems to Lead. These actions should be celebrated and not undermined by misinformed, illiterate adults. Countless efforts by African Americans to educate our youth are well documented, if not highlighted, by our mainstream media outlets. What does this work mean if Black people today can invent history, make a mockery of all the contributions made by African Americans to the advancement in the fields of science and literature? The Black Aboriginal, Black Indian, foundational Black American cults are a result of the reading crisis. These cults, through misinformation and incompetence, are making the problem worse by turning education into a bad thing. So while Black media outlets focus on electing Biden or Trump, the gender wars, hip-hop beefs, In Bible debates, our children are being taught by functionally illiterate individuals to be functionally illiterate. And that right there is where we will conclude this stream of AOI World News, a conscious community network production, broadcasting from the Argument League. It's your boy, Pro Black Politics, aka Lustafari in the chat, signing off. Do this for my people. Do this for my people.